Here's the translation of your text into English. Nah. The founding of Rome. In a distant past, around 753 BC, on the banks of the Tiber River, two legendary figures emerged from the mists of time, Romulus and Remus, twin brothers who would become the founders of one of the greatest civilizations in history. The story of their early days is shrouded in mystery and magic, beginning with a family tragedy. They were the sons of Rhea Silvia and the god Mars, but were abandoned in a basket, thrown into the river by a king fearful of losing his throne. The current carried them to a shore, where they were found by a she-wolf, who nursed and protected them. Growing up under her care, the twins became strong and courageous young men. In time, they were rescued by a shepherd named Faustulus, who raised them as his own sons, giving them a life of love and adventure. Upon reaching adulthood, Romulus and Remus discovered their true origins and, determined to find their place in the world, decided to found a new city. However, each's ambition led them to an inevitable conflict over the ideal location to build their walls. Romulus wanted the Palatine Hill, while Remus preferred the Aventine. The dispute culminated in a confrontation, and in a tragic moment, Romulus, overtaken by passion and the determination to conquer his destiny, killed his brother. Thus, Romulus became the sole founder of Rome, heralding a new era. He outlined the city's boundaries and established its laws, attracting people from various backgrounds to inhabit it. With the founding of Rome, a new chapter in history began, filled with challenges, achievements, and dreams of grandeur that would shape the future of that city which would become an empire. The monarchy. After the tragic death of Remus, Romulus became the first king of Rome, and his leadership marked the beginning of the monarchical era. He not only established the city but also began to shape its social and political structure. Romulus convened a Senate, composed of 100 of the most influential men in Rome, which would become one of the pillars of Roman government. To ensure the growth of the city, Romulus created a system of alliances with neighboring tribes and encouraged immigration by offering shelter and protection. Thus, Rome began to thrive, attracting men and women seeking safety and opportunities. However, the city still faced a significant challenge: the shortage of women. In a bold maneuver, Romulus organized a festival to celebrate the new home. During the festivities, the Romans kidnapped the women from neighboring tribes, especially from the Sabines, creating a conflict that would become known as the Rape of the Sabine Women. The women, initially reluctant, ended up integrating into the new society, and many marriages were formed, uniting the two communities. Over time, the city continued to grow and prosper under the reign of Romulus, who instituted laws and rituals that would shape the daily life of the Romans. However, his leadership was not without challenges. After years of rule, Romulus faced the wrath of the nobility and his own citizens, who began to question his power. In an act of desperation and betrayal, some conspired against him, leading to a mysterious and dramatic end. Romulus disappeared in a storm, and legend says he ascended to the heavens, becoming a god. After his death, Rome was governed by a series of kings, each uniquely contributing to the city's growth. Among them were Numa Pompilius, who brought peace and religion, and Tarquin the Proud, who, while bringing great works, also sowed discontent among the citizens. Over time, the Roman monarchy began to become unstable. Internal conflicts and the growing power of the nobles led to a climate of tension and revolt. Popular discontent culminated in 509 BC, when the Romans, tired of tyranny, decided to depose the last king. Thus, the people of Rome, in search of freedom and justice, prepared to write a new chapter in their history, marking the end of the monarchy and the transition to the Republic. The Roman Republic. With the deposition of Tarquin the Proud in 509 BC, Rome entered a new regime, the Republic. This system of government was a fundamental milestone, allowing Roman citizens to have a voice and influence in the administration of the city. Instead of a single ruler, power was divided between the Senate and elected magistrates, establishing a complex system of checks and balances aimed at preventing tyranny. The Senate, composed of members of the elite, became the heart of the Republican government, responsible for advising the magistrates and deciding issues of public importance. Meanwhile, the consuls, 2 magistrates elected annually, assumed executive leadership, commanding the army and administering justice. This new structure provided a space for different voices to be heard, but also brought to light tensions between social classes. Roman society was divided between patricians, the wealthy and influential aristocracy, and plebeians, the common citizens. Over the years, plebeians began to demand more rights and participation in political decisions. The tensions between these two classes culminated in a series of conflicts known as the struggles of the plebs, which resulted in the creation of mechanisms that ensured plebeian representation, such as the election of tribunes. As Rome politically established itself, its territorial ambition also grew. The Republic rapidly expanded, conquering neighboring cities and tribes. The Roman army, disciplined and well-trained, became a feared force. With victories in battles, Rome began to establish its influence over the Italian peninsula and beyond. However, this era of expansion was not without challenges. Internal rivalries and external pressures led to armed conflicts, such as the Samnite Wars, where Rome fought against the Samnite peoples for territorial control. Despite the difficulties, Rome emerged victorious, solidifying its dominance in the region. But the true test of the Republic came with the rise of Carthage, a powerful city-state in North Africa. The rivalry between Rome and Carthage intensified, resulting in a series of epic wars known as the Punic Wars. The first war began in 264 BC, and the Romans, determined to secure their supremacy, faced unimaginable challenges. As the wars unfolded, the Republic began to show signs of wear. The growing wealth, brought by conquests, fueled the ambitions of charismatic leaders like Julius Caesar, who sought personal power amidst the political chaos. The balance that the Republic had established began to disintegrate, setting the stage for a new era of conflicts and transformations that would shape Rome's future. The Punic Wars. The Punic Wars, a series of 3 conflicts between Rome and Carthage, became a turning point in the history of the Roman Republic. The first war began in 264 BC, and its origins stemmed from territorial disputes in Sicily, where both powers sought to expand their influence. What began as a struggle for a strategic island quickly transformed into a fight for supremacy in the Mediterranean. The Romans, despite their land strength, faced difficulties at sea, where the Carthaginians, known for their powerful fleet, dominated. However, Rome quickly adapted. Developing new naval technology, the Romans built ships that could be used in battle, allowing them to gain maritime superiority. The victory in the Battle of Mylae in 260 BC was a milestone, and eventually Rome prevailed, forcing Carthage to sign a peace treaty in 241 BC, ceding Sicily and paying a heavy indemnity. Peace, however, was short-lived. Carthage, although defeated, was unwilling to submit. The Second Punic War, initiated in 218 BC, presented Rome with one of its greatest challenges. The Carthaginian general Hannibal, famous for his audacious crossing of the Alps with an army and elephants, launched a series of devastating attacks in Italy, inflicting significant defeats on Rome, such as in the famous Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, where the Romans suffered a crushing defeat. Despite the losses, Roman resilience was remarkable. The Republic restructured its army and adopted new tactics, focusing on wearing down the enemy. While Hannibal was busy devastating Italy, Rome decided to attack Carthage directly. Under the leadership of Publius Cornelius Scipio, the Romans launched a campaign in North Africa, culminating in the decisive Battle of Zama in 202 BC, where Roman forces defeated Hannibal. With victory in the Second Punic War, Rome emerged not only as a regional power, but as the leading force in the Mediterranean. Carthage was forced to cede its possessions and limit its army, and Rome imposed a treaty that left it in humiliating conditions. However, victory brought new challenges. The growing wealth and power amassed by the Republic generated internal disputes as victorious generals and their followers sought more influence. The return of victorious soldiers to their homes also brought the need to address social and agrarian issues, as many plebeians who had fought in the wars returned to an unequal and unstable Rome. Thus, as Rome solidified itself as a superpower, the seeds of discontent and rivalry were being sown, preparing the ground for further internal conflicts and the eventual transformation of the Republic into an empire. The balance of power was about to change once again, and figures like Julius Caesar began to emerge as protagonists in a landscape of growing tension and ambition. The crisis of the Republic. After the victories of the Punic Wars, Rome experienced a period of great prosperity and territorial expansion. However, this growing wealth also brought to light deep social and political divisions. The inequality between patricians and plebeians intensified, and many soldiers, upon returning from wars, found their lands devastated and their hopes dashed. Social tensions began to manifest in protests and conflicts as plebeians demanded agrarian reforms and more political rights. In this climate of discontent, charismatic leaders began to emerge. One of the most prominent was Tiberius Gracchus, a tribune of the plebs who attempted to implement reforms to redistribute land to the masses, but his initiatives provoked the fury of the elite. Tiberius was assassinated in 133 BC, and his death symbolized the beginning of an era of political violence and instability. His brother, Gaius Gracchus, continued the fight for reforms, but also met a tragic fate, being assassinated in 121 BC. The Republic, once a symbol of freedom and civic participation, was transforming into a battleground between rival factions, where the pursuit of power and control was becoming increasingly brutal. Social discontent and political rivalries culminated in a series of civil wars. The general Marius, who distinguished himself during the Punic Wars, and Sulla, another military leader, became central figures in a new conflict. Sulla, after a confrontation with Marius, took control of Rome and established a dictatorship, implementing reforms and purges that eliminated his political enemies. His rise to power highlighted the fragility of the Republic, revealing how the army, once subservient to the state, began to become an instrument of personal ambition. With Sulla's death, the struggle for power did not diminish. Rivalries continued to grow, especially among generals seeking control. Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus formed the First Triumvirate, a political alliance aimed at balancing their ambitions. However, this coalition was unstable, and tensions soon began to arise. The alliance between Caesar and Pompey eventually fell apart. When Crassus died in 53 BC, the rivalry between Caesar and Pompey intensified. Caesar, seeking to expand his power and influence, crossed the Rubicon in 49 BC, challenging the authority of the Senate and initiating a civil war. The famous phrase, "the die is cast," became a symbol of his boldness. The civil war devastated Rome, and after a series of battles, Caesar emerged victorious. In 44 BC, he was named dictator for life, which sparked fears that he intended to abolish the Republic. His growing power and reforms, although popular among many, also sparked resentment among senators who saw his actions as a threat to freedom and tradition. In March 44 BC, Caesar was assassinated in a conspiracy led by senators, including Brutus and Cassius. His assassination, rather than restoring order, plunged Rome into further civil wars. The Republic, once a symbol of civic participation, was on its deathbed, and new leaders would emerge amid the chaos, setting the stage for the transition from a republic in crisis to a rising empire. The Roman Empire. After the death of Julius Caesar, Rome entered a new era under the leadership of Augustus, who became the first Roman emperor. This period marks the beginning of the Roman Empire, which reaches its height in terms of territorial expansion, cultural development, and economic prosperity. During the empire, Rome expands significantly, incorporating vast regions of Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia. This expansion not only increases Rome's military power, but also promotes cultural exchange among the diverse peoples and civilizations under its rule, resulting in a rich fusion of traditions. However, the vast expanse of the empire brings with it various challenges. The long and varied borders require a strong army and constant vigilance against invasions by barbarian tribes. Additionally, economic and political crises, such as inflation and corruption, begin to manifest. These internal and external tensions, coupled with administrative problems, contribute to the eventual fragmentation of the empire, culminating in the division between the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. The history of the Roman Empire is, therefore, marked by impressive achievements, but also by significant challenges that shape the destiny of Western civilization. If you need any adjustments or further assistance, feel free to ask.